Steinberg. I'm the library director for Deschutes Public Library. And tonight we are unveiling to you our initial plans for the Stevens Ranch Library. And we'll be talking about where it is, what it looks like. This is a very exciting event for us. This has been years and years and years in planning. And the impact of this is hard to say right now. I can tell you that we just did the groundbreaking in Redmond, and to see the number of kids and parents and every generation out there excited about their library that's coming, that's what we're going to be doing here in February, but this is what it's going to look like right now. So when it stops snowing, we'll finish some planning, then it'll snow, and then we'll have a groundbreaking. So stay tuned for that. So I'm really excited for you today. We have our architecture team here with us. We have Miller Hull and Associates Architects, along with Scott Steele and Associates. And I can say that these are really powerful designs. These are designs that we have taken everything that we've heard from the public over the last 6 or 7 years, going out to fairs, to anywhere that anybody would talk to us, basically talking about what they wanted in their library, and this is what you're going to see reflected back. So this is just really exciting. I can't sell it anymore. Their pictures will tell everything. So I'm going to hand this over to Ruth Baleko, architect at Miller Hull, and she's going to walk us through your new library.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. We have a great team here that you're going to get to meet later. We're going to speak for a little while to kind of give you the high points. And then what we'll do is we're going to take kind of a 2-minute break. We're going to move so that we have separate stations around the room for different topics. And that way people can go and really dial in and ask specific questions or give us really detailed feedback about things that you're interested in. So we'll have those 4 stations around the room. And we have a big chunk of our team here this evening, so you'll get to meet more of us than just me. So Ruth Baleko, I'm with the Miller Hull Partnership, and we are teamed up at the hip with Steele and Associates, whose offices are right here in Bend. And so Derek, we have Brian Bishop, who's our landscape architect, and we have Matt and John also from Miller Hull. So we'll be kind of divided ourselves up. But we'll give you the high points first so you can kind of understand a lot of the things that the team has been working to put in place. And they're all things that we've heard from community members like you over the past year and a half. You probably all know about the site and the Stevens Ranch area. 27th is on the left, north is up, and there's a new roundabout going in as part of that master plan development, and that's right there. And so this entire site is being developed with the exception of the upper right corner. That's going to be left untouched for right now. So the area you're seeing in green and illustrated there is the required parking that we need for the library and the new building. And we'll go kind of to the next, I think, image here. We were zooming in so you can kind of see it more closely. What you're seeing here is the southern portion of the building closest to the roundabout. And I'll walk you through the different things you're seeing. You're seeing a drop-off aisle near the letter G where people can get dropped off, real close to the door, or run up and put a book in the book drop. And then A is the front door. And who here is excited about covered bike parking? Anyone? Okay, we have you covered. That's at J. And then once you come inside, we've got more information on that arrivals area, but you can also approach the building from 27th because there will be that multimodal trail going in there. So either way, you come from A or B into the main arrivals area, and the letter E was the event, kind of a spill out public community space outside of the meeting room. So great spot to sit with a coffee and a book, on any day, or if you happen to have, a gathering of one of the clubs or community meetings, they can use that outdoor space. How many of you recognize that photo? Right? You have beautiful landscape here. We see it every time we're here. Some of us live here part-time. And we really, I think, we want to make sure this building is an expression of your community, the people who live here, your DNA, your hopes and dreams. And I think one of the things that we've been really taken with is that striking beauty here of the high desert in Central Oregon. And we've been thinking a lot about what it means to arrive at a place, get oriented, find your way, understand what's here, explore a little bit through the building, through the wilderness, but also get up to a spot where you can have some prospect and reflection. And all of those things, as architects, we like to think of those kind of analogies to help us create really experiential places in the building. So we'll walk through this here a little bit. Next slide. Imagine you are approaching kind of that southeast corner of the building. You've made your way into the parking lot, or you've parked your bike or walked from the nearby homes. You can see kind of that spill out area to the left. You're seeing all native, drought tolerant landscape materials that are of this really unique environment. You can ask Brian more about that later. And then you're seeing the front entry there off of that kind of front entry plaza. And we'll go inside. So right inside those doors that we just showed you, this space needs to do a lot. It needs to greet you. It needs to be really clear about what things are where, what's going on today. Is there a meeting? Is there a program? Can I get a coffee? Hot and new books, the holds, the book return, the self-check. And so it's got a lot going on, and we need to make it really clear, but also exciting when you come in. So there's a little bit of something for everyone right inside the front doors. And this is a drawing you're seeing just coming in that entry at the bottom of the screen that we showed you. The two community rooms are to the left. They can be divided or used together. The cafe up at the top, the holds and the library of things. Lots of expanded capacity. We know those are really popular. And then, you might also be heading up to one of the other collection areas. So you might be dropping your book off at the book returns inside. You might be going to the elevator if you have strollers and a bunch of kiddos, or you might be heading for the stair.
And we've also made the book drops kind of a fun element, given that there's going to be a glass wall there, that we're implementing an automated material handling machine. So kids will be able to see their book go in the book drop and then get sorted on the conveyor.
Yeah. And we have some really great images here of the center area, I think. We're going to show you. And yeah, so I talked about all the things that are going on in the arrival area, but we plan a space like this thinking about the routes that people will take, right? I need to see where I'm going. I need to see a clear sight line to that thing I'm really excited about. So that's all part of how architects start to lay out a space like this. Next slide. And we're thinking about, is there kind of a central kind of welcoming moment that you might find a staff member to point you in the right direction. There might be the hot and new books or a new exciting display, things that might be digital information about what's going on, and some seating. So I think it's going to be a really vibrant space. And we have some pictures of what it might start to look like. These are just images not of your building, because we haven't built your building yet, but to think about the scale of the space that you're going to be in. You're going to see multiple floors up into the building. You're going to see areas of seating. We almost start to design this a little bit like a plaza, because that's kind of how it needs to function at that size. Next image. Next slide. We're going to go to the big one. Oh, we didn't have the atrium. Oh, I was thinking, sorry, I'm out of order with my slides. This is a view if you came from the entry at the west on 27th. You can see kind of right to the elevators and to the book drop. And we've got some other shots here. Matt's pointing out the book returns. We have a couple images here in a few minutes where you get to see more of the arrival area. Who has little kids in their family, grandkids, kids, siblings? Okay, level 2 is going to be the place to be. That's for all youth of all ages. So we are starting to think about how we can really create zones for the different age groups, because developmentally we're all looking for different things, right? As we go from 0 to 5, we're being helped to build the skills to read with a caregiver or a buddy. But then pretty soon we can pick out our own book and sit and read it. But then when we're teens, we really want to just kind of be with our gang, right? Our buddies, and, invest more in technology and reading. So we need to make sure all those different age groups kind of have a spot that's meeting them where they are. So you're seeing some areas kind of designated by those half circles. Those are not developed totally yet, so we'd love to hear more thoughts about them tonight. But if you go to the next slide, there's a lot going on this floor. We have the areas for teens down on the lower corner. That's really going to feel all about them. We have spots where you can sit and read a book that you've discovered and kind of find a spot for yourself. At the north end, that's where we're going to get some really great views out of the building. You'll see that tonight. So you might be sitting with a caregiver, kind of on a chair and a half, reading together, turning the pages together. And then also, we do have plans for an intergenerational Spanish collection, as well as the two areas we're going to talk about here that are our early learning interactive kind of areas. I'll come back to that. But we also have story time, one of the most popular spots in the building. We have a space that will be devoted to children's programs like that, as well as kind of a hands-on creative space. So in addition to kind of all of the collection and seating and interactive areas around the entire floor, we also have those enclosable areas that can have those scheduled programs, scheduled activities. And again, we haven't designed all of these components yet for your building, so these are just representative of other projects. And the things we're starting to think about are, how do you create engaging, age-appropriate environments for youth of all ages? And how do you keep it fun, but also safe? We need to be able to see through the building to all the, different areas. As a parent, you kind of want to be able to see, can I have a corner of my eye on all the different areas? We're thinking about color, how we can weave together really engaging, interactive installations, as well as seating and other kind of areas for groups and people by themselves. I talked a little bit about the early learning interactives. We have a special expert on the team that they've worked for OMSI, they've worked for other kind of museum and other engaging learning spaces specifically for youth. And that's a really, that's a niche market of expertise, because they really are facile at not only children's development in certain skill building areas, but then how do you manifest that in interactives that are safe, hold up, are durable. So they're amazing, and they're from Portland. And so these early learning interactives will be across all of the branches, but at this building, we have a little bit more space to do something a little bit more robust. So what they've started doing is thinking about this at multiple scales, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But basically, they're trying to create larger environments that feel like kind of destinations on the floor, that also are comprised of mobile elements that could kind of live right there, or they could be taken and moved to other portions of the children's floor to really spread that interaction out if desired. And I'll explain a little bit of that next. So I'm going to drill into the two areas that are shown in turquoise here. Those are the areas where we're really talking about the youth that are kind of 0 to 5. We're building the skills to learn how to read as soon as that becomes where our skills are, and their caregivers. This is an image where you're starting to see how we're using the larger space of the library to create a place that feels like an environment. And you're seeing here furnishings and surfaces where some of these interactive engagements can come out and be put out. You're seeing one of the carts here in the center that starts to have some very specific skill building and play-oriented components, as well as furnishings. And what's really amazing as they start to put these together is how they can be used together, but they're also kind of modular, so they can also be broken apart and used differently. So what that does is it means that each time you come, there could be a slightly different experience, one that a child or a caregiver has some autonomy over, right, and some authorship over. And because of the carts being mobile, and there's quite a few of them, it will change over time. So it starts to be an experience that's different each time you come. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. So I'll go through these kind of quickly, but there will be a whole station dedicated to this topic, so please come and ask more detailed questions. But they went through a really great analysis for us of how we start to use modular and mobile components to actually prompt children and caregivers to interact with the collection. So I'll go to the next slide and kind of give you an example. So these are some where they start to use wordplay or block shapes or balls and tubes to create interactive experiences where the child is learning shape recognition, sound recognition, color recognition, and those are all the building blocks of learning to read. As we get a little bit older, the examples become a little bit more detailed, but still ones that start to make slightly different experiences. Like they talked about one where you can, I'm trying to think of the different ones we had here. There's ways of kind of engaging tubular elements in these, so you can kind of put your eye up like a periscope and see an object doing things. And so there's going to be just really kind of different and playful, but yet educationally based components here. Next slide. And just a few more where we're starting to integrate sound. Because as you learn to read and you're learning to sound out letters, learning to recognize sound either spoken by others or you learning to make new sounds is a big piece. Next slide. And this is another piece that we're finding ways. So the carts are mobile. They will be able to be kind of parked in one area or travel around. But then also what they're calling trailheads. And these are pieces that are modular and can kind of be inserted into the collection shelving throughout the building. And what's neat about this is that, sometimes you go into the library and you always head right for the thing you always like to read, right? The Nancy Drew's. I read all of them at least 25 times. But it's also really important to help explore new areas, right? Other things you didn't know the library had. So these are called trailheads. And so imagine it's kind of like almost like a diorama. And librarians are able to put a changeable prompt in here. So this one says, can you find a book about hungry animals? And so a child can go and say, I'm going to find a book about hungry animals and place it in there. And then when another child comes and says, oh, that's a book I hadn't thought of. So it's actually a way for children to interact with the collection and kind of leave artifacts and experiences for the next child that comes along. What is the silliest book you can find? So it starts to create the exploration and curiosity building of things that are already in the collection. As we start to get more toward juveniles, those are the kind of chapter books and easy readers when you're starting to pick out your own books yourselves. Some of these will start to have scenes in them that start to relate to stories in the collection. Next. And so I think one of the things we're working with is trying to make sure that these experiences are as adaptable over time, as modular, and as kind of ways that they can be either moved around the building or moved to different branches to make sure these experiences are really starting to, be as varied as the community that they're in. So these are just some quick drawings where they're starting to talk about how things can plug and play. Next slide. Yeah, great. Yeah, and so all of these really start to come down to how are you getting children and caregivers to be interacting and growing that the skills first, the foundation, but then the enjoyment and the curiosity and the love of reading. Keep going. And then, as part of that series of modular components, it's also places to sit. The early ones, everyone's on the floor, right? So how can you start to create some seating components that slightly engage play, slightly engage seating, different ages? Are you sitting by yourself or with pal? Next. See, there's some of the spatial dividers, so we can kind of create little areas that separate play. Yep, more seating. Yep. So now we've done a tour of level 2, which is all about the youth, and now we're headed up to level 3. And this is just a view as you're going up the stairway to level 3, and you're looking back down toward that arrival area, and you're able to kind of see, again, all the things that could be taking place there. So again, kids aren't the only ones who should get to have fun areas of discovery, right? As adults, we like that too. Surprise me, show me something new that's going on in the collection. What am I stumbling on that I had no idea DPL had? So the same age-appropriate kind of approach is what we're starting to work on here for level 3, which is all of the adult collection. So when we go to level 3, yep, the next image. So things like a hands-on space for adult programming. Are we making quilts today? Are we doing other kind of hands-on programming? Maybe we're having an author here to do a speaking engagement or a reading. We also have a co-working area, so you can come and use, either your own devices, do a Zoom call, an interview, etc. All of those things that you might need from a co-working environment. But then we have, hot and new books. What's hot off the press and everyone's talking about? Are there little areas of display that you kind of discover and stumble upon where the collection will be displayed differently, depending on the season or the event? We have areas for large print. We have areas for nonfiction, fiction, periodicals, all the things that you're used to finding. But then also some areas at that north end of the building, again, where we have some great views, where you can just kind of sit and linger, read that book for a while, have some time of reflection. We have a meeting room actually on the one on the lower right corner. Again, another community space that we've heard over and over and over that the community wants is more and more meeting spaces. And what's great about being at the north end is that's really comfortable light all day. You aren't getting the direct heat gain or the glare that you will in other, times of the areas of the site. And again, these are just some images to get people thinking about how the collection can be interesting and engaging and displayed differently to really entice you to explore. You're going to see some images here that are working images. So that means we're using them as tools, but they might not have been fully gussied up yet to, because that's not what we're using for. They're kind of a study model. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the exterior of the building. We know what kind of a unique and sometimes harsh climate it is here, right, in Central Oregon. We have days like this. We have days that are hot, right, and the sun is ablazing. We get snow. We get wind. There's days that are lovely. And the building has to give you that absolutely comfortable experience no matter what it's doing outside. And because of the location we are trying to get the building itself to give you that protection without just upsizing the mechanical equipment to air condition or heat it more. We're trying to get the building to do some of that work and make the environment as comfortable as we can. So the building on the west side actually has these kind of faceted skin, which what it does is it allows us access to those wonderful views to the west, where you have really amazing mountain views over the top of the kind of the neighboring area. But it protects you from the heat and the glare. And so those shingle pieces actually prevent the direct sunlight from coming in until much, much later in the kind of very late afternoon or evening. But you're going to see some images in the center. We get these amazing tall windows. So we are not foregoing the connection to the outdoors. We're just doing it in a really, really smart, energy efficient, resource efficient way. Here's again that view from the entry kind of arrival area on the outside. The east side of the building, we don't have to do as much solar work there because the sun has passed around the building by the time the library opens. So it's really kind of from the afternoon on that we're trying to be really smart on that west side of the building. Again, here's just some more views. We are planning to do mass timber. So that's what we're saying here is you're going to have a wood structure. So columns, beam, and floor deck. And that means it's all kind of locally resourced timber. And it really lowers your embodied carbon. It starts to use a local resource. And so that's all really great stewardship. Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking me to do that. South side is right here. And that's where those community spaces are. The entry, the main entry is on the east side. Yep. And so what we're doing is we're using a combination of vision glazing that you see through and metal to start to really make sure that we're giving you controlled daylight and amazing access to the natural surroundings and view. We'll go to the next slide. We talked a little bit about that arrival area. This is kind of a view if you came in from either direction and your back is to the community meeting rooms and you're looking north and you can start to see up and into all of the different collection areas that we just talked about. You can see the book return on the lower right with that automated materials handling system we just discussed. We've got the children's area on the left, teens, adults. We've got the cafe kind of on the foreground in the corner. And you have clear views to the stair and the elevator to find your way up. Next slide.
What you're not seeing in the foreground is all the seating.
Right, yes. Great point. We had to, yes. Here's a view, another view if you came in kind of that west entry from the drop off, just another angle showing again how we're trying to bring in really controlled and comfortable light and views in a way that's smart designed for this environment. And I think that the other thing you're seeing here is the use of the timber structure really gives a warm character. We've worked on dozens of libraries, and there's two things that people always want access to, and that's natural light and kind of natural finishes. It provides a really, I think, a character of a building that people feel comfortable in. And then we also heard, the stewardship of public resources is really critical. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We are pursuing net zero energy, which means we will have PVs that provide for the energy that the building needs. We're doing by using timber and really reducing the amount of concrete, et cetera, in the building. We're reducing our embodied carbon, which is important in our environment today. All of the aspects of comfort that I've talked about today, light, temperature, air quality, et cetera, that's a big piece of occupant health, whether you're spending a couple hours in there or the day or every day if you're a staff member. And lastly, we're pursuing LEED certification. And sustainability will be one of the stations right here. So if you want more detail on that, that's where this will occur tonight. And I think, some of the things that we think about, again, in this climate where it gets really hot and really cold, before we just design a mechanical system, we make sure the envelope of the building, the skin, is doing as much work as it can. Next slide. We're going to be an all-electric building, again, setting you up for resiliency in the future. Next slide. And then again, the PVs, the areas that are in purple here. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Photovoltaics. So solar panels. Yes. Thank you. I slip into my acronyms without thinking about it. And so the areas in purple are the areas where the team has started to lay out and earmark the square footage that we will need for the solar panels to provide power for this building. Yep. And so you can kind of see, here's a view kind of up a little bit and over that kind of arrival plaza. You can see the entry down on the lower right and the landscaping, but then the solar panels that will be on the roof. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yep. Embodied carbon, it's in the news a lot today, but it also can be written about in a way that's very technical. And so feel free, like if you have more questions and we haven't done a great job talking about it, please come to the sustainability station and we can explain it a little, in more detail. But basically, there's the carbon that is part of how we operate a building. Did we turn on the heat that's, fueled by gas or oil or coal, and that's the kind of the operating carbon. There's also the embodied carbon, which is what did we do to make the building before we even flipped on the lights. And so that's something we as architects can help with before the building even opens, is how do we start reducing that. So one of the things that, we are working to help do is making sure that we're doing our part here with all the new buildings we're putting on the planet. And it's not that hard. It's things that we put into practice, and you're getting the benefit of having that be part of just how we build buildings today, especially in the Northwest, where some of our energy codes are really robust. And reducing the use of concrete, again, using wood for some of our structure. There's our timber structure. Occupant health, super important. So not only the carpet and the paint and all of the materials you see, we've gotten so much better than just low VOC these days. That's kind of, we've passed that. Now we talk about chemicals of concern. So those everyday and forever chemicals you hear about in the news, those are things that we've just done enough of those kinds of projects. That's just a standard way of building buildings that we can provide. Yep, next. And another piece of occupant comfort, we talked a little bit about glare and heat gain, but we have, sophisticated tools we use to model the daylight quality and quantity throughout the year in any part of the building. So we can really tune that skin of the building to make sure it's doing all the work we need it to do. Oh yes, again, chemicals of concern. These are just some that, we work to find substitutes for and make sure that those things are not in the building where they can affect users. And leadership in environmental and energy I've been using acronyms, right? You forget what they really stand for. Leadership in energy and environmental design. I had the two middle ones flipped. And that's what that is a checklist, essentially. It's a checklist that owners and teams and contractors can use to go through and say, okay, on this project, where can we start to do some things that really make sense from an environmental comfort standpoint, from a water saving standpoint, from an energy saving standpoint, from a chemical standpoint, and every project's different. And different things, are more or less pertinent to adopt for any given project. Yes, that's what we're shooting for. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now, this is the scorecard that kind of shows where we're tracking all the credits that we're trying to achieve, and we are at around 70 points that we feel comfortable we can achieve, which is a LEED Gold certified building.
And, as a long-term building owner, the library system is, this is really important stewardship of resources, right? I mean, this comes down to the bottom line of running a building and using water and energy and electricity, et cetera, in a really smart way. Next. Wow, do you feel like you got a speed tour through the building?